You have a dormant ability that can alter the way you experience and lead your life. You have this power at your fingertips. We all do. What is this power? It's the power to consciously alter the way you experience and react to the world. Many different practices function with this goal in mind. One of the main reasons therapy has any efficacy is because it practices alteration of perception and belief. In order to fully understand this concept, we must first explore what I mean by perception and belief. In the last video, we spoke on attachment to beliefs and aspects of identification. In this video, we're going to be putting a magnifying glass on how these aspects of belief and identification can positively or negatively impact the way we experience the world, as well as how to change our maladaptive perceptions or beliefs into ones that may better serve us. Many people believe we see the world objectively. It's the default, to believe we're seeing things the way that they are. But there is actually a process of interpretation that occurs when we observe the world and our surroundings. Let's say Becky here is afraid of squirrels. She really does not like them, whereas Sandra loves squirrels. If Becky and Sandra are walking through a park and all of a sudden, guess what, a squirrel pops out of the bushes and runs up to them, what do you think is going to happen? Becky screams, freaks out, and runs. Sandra smiles and approaches the squirrel, finding it very cute. These two people are seeing the same squirrel, but perceiving it in a way that causes their experience of the situation and resulting actions to be complete polar opposites of each other. What exactly is going on here? Each one of us, as we go about our lives, has a lens with which we view the world that's unique to us. This lens we use to interpret our surroundings and circumstances has bearing on our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Some lenses may have views that are more adaptive than others. Our lens may show a preference to one action over another, or an aversion to a particular food, but this is not seeing the world as it objectively is. The can of cat food on my counter, this is my cat Bella by the way, she's amazing, strikes me as something I should not eat. But that is not an inherent quality of the cat food. The cat food is a collection of matter, no aversion, no attraction, no opinion, nothing. It's an object on my counter. It is my lens of perception that gives it its motivational hue, as well as its title of cat food and the understanding of how to act in relationship to the object therein. My lens of perception dictates my internal reaction and my subsequent behavior towards that object in question. Not being consciously aware of this process and taking it as it comes may work just fine for Bella's cat food, but when it comes to more complicated things such as moral dilemmas or major life decisions, not being able to see past the tendencies of our perceptions may lead us to acting out of accordance with what we really want, or to making incorrect decisions based on our maladaptive perception. As such, it is important we question whether our beliefs and identities serve us. It's important to ask ourselves, where do our beliefs come from? What beliefs do you hold that you yourself are unaware of, and how do these beliefs alter your perceptions and actions? Now you might be saying, sure, I have identified a belief that I know doesn't serve me, like believing that the speed limit is merely a suggestion despite racking up 5 speeding tickets in the past year and a half. But once I've identified this belief, how can I go about consciously changing my own mind? Well, as it turns out, that's the exact question we're going to be working with today. Now, in order to explain this topic a bit better, I'm going to be drawing from a few different therapy practices. I want to highlight beforehand that it's not necessarily therapy itself that is the necessary aspect of what I'm going to speak on today, and this reflective inner work can be done on your own in absence of therapy. But by far the most important piece of information that is consistent across all of these methods is the observation and the exercising of internal beliefs. If you have more interest in these concepts, however, you will know where to follow up. This idea of beliefs being the fundamental core of our perceptions is dead center in the practice of a school of therapy developed by a man named Albert Ellis, titled Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy, or REBT. REBT is very similar to a more widely recognized and common form of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and both have similar views on the topic of perceptions and altering beliefs. For this example, I'm going to focus on REBT because the language used is slightly more binary and rigid, which conveys my point with greater clarity. If you're interested in more information after the fact, looking into CBT or REBT will both serve a similar purpose. At the core of REBT is this idea that our beliefs are ultimately responsible for our negative emotions and for our maladaptive behaviors. Albert Ellis emphasizes the relationship between our inner voice and how we talk to ourselves about our circumstances as being a fundamental causal point of suffering and mental duress or illness. He states that many people, when talking to themselves about their circumstances or experiences, follow a sane statement with an insane statement. When speaking of what he means by a sane statement, he uses an example that has to do with viewing how we feel about a particular thing, such as, I did not like my behavior at this given point in time. Critically, he states that this observation is followed by what he refers to as an insane statement, and these have to do with generalized conclusions about how we feel about things. The example Ellis uses in this scenario is, if I did not like my behavior at this particular point in time, that means that I am a bad person or I am no good. This strong overgeneralization and identification with the negative self-representation is what Ellis posits as the core causal factor that lies at the center of any mental affliction. This relationship between observation and conclusion about an observation is what lies at the core of REBT. I'm going to give another example given by a proprietor of REBT, Aaron Beck, and I've linked the source video below if you wish to hear his example in his own words. In this example I'm going to use from that video, I want you to identify what would be considered by Ellis to be an insane statement at the heart of this prospective person's suffering. The example is as follows. We'll call this person Sandy. Let's say Sandy has chronic back pain. As you can see here, the circumstance of Sandy's back pain prompts Sandy to focus on that back pain. Once she focuses on the back pain, it becomes amplified, and any negative feelings about the back pain follow suit. With this, Sandy believes that this back pain is going to get worse and worse. She catastrophizes about her back pain, leading to anxiety about her worsening back pain. Because of her unmanaged anxiety, she has begun having panic attacks, which have impaired her life and led her to depression. So tell me, which thought or thoughts from this example could Ellis consider to be the insane statements or irrational conclusions and identifications that lead to further suffering? If you said everything beyond the level of observation, you would be correct. You may be saying, well, that's all well and good, but how do I go about changing those mental reactions once I identify them? To this I say, you must challenge these beliefs both with internal questioning and with gathering information in your environment that may run contrary to these beliefs. Once it is fully understood that your self-defeating belief not only does not serve you, but is also unlikely to be the truth, you'll be able to move past it, altering your lens of perception and reducing your suffering. What do I mean by internal questioning? When one of these self-defeating thoughts arises, ask yourself, am I absolutely sure this is the case? Sandy from earlier, for example, is she actually sure that her back pain is going to get worse and worse? Is there any possible alternative viewpoint she could hold in reference to her back pain? Is there any possible way to change this belief? Every time these thoughts come up, if Sandy asks herself this question, her mind will answer her call and produce possible alternatives. With sufficient tenacity, this belief in the pain getting worse as an absolute truth will begin to lose its grip, rather than it being a habitual default thought process that begins the downward spiral. The process is interrupted at the source, and the challenging of this belief has gained traction. There are situations where this is sufficient to change one's mind, to simply think logically of a counterargument. But we all know that human beings have a tendency to ignore logic at important junctures. This brings in the second piece of the puzzle, to present yourself with experiential evidence that crushes this belief. Now that we have identified that we are not locked in to having back pain become worse and worse forever, and there is indeed a shred of hope in our frame of reference, we can use this energy in creating action. Seeking specialists, learning about back pain relief, exercising, and employing a more healthy lifestyle, etc. All of these actions will make it more likely that Sandy will find evidence to the belief that rather, her back pain will improve. We as humans love to watch a comeback story. Think of yourself as the unlikely hero whose journey is to defeat this belief, and in this pursuit, you'll pave your road to a better life. If this method sounds a bit confrontational for you, or you've tried this more Western-based approach and found the model to not be to your liking, there are more ways than one to change your lens to better suit you. The next method I will detail comes from a Buddhist monk by the name of Sultrium Alione, and is further explained in her book titled Feeding Your Demons: Ancient Wisdom for Resolving Inner Conflict. In this video, she explains a branch of Buddhism that began in the 11th century from the teachings of a monk named Machi Glaubdren called Chut, meaning severance or cutting through. This practice resembles internal family systems therapy, which is a kind of therapy practiced in the West quite frequently. In the beginning of the book, she actually challenges this idea of the hero myth that is so pervasive in Western culture, that we should fight against ourselves and the world in order to obtain some higher goal. Think stories like Hercules or any superhero movie. The protagonist is pitted against some opposition, and through the fighting against and the victory against this opposition, obtains reward through social, emotional, or physical gain. Instead of this typical framework, she uses examples of influential people like Gandhi, who were able to face opposition peacefully and resolve conflict in a non-violent manner. I'm going to do my best to provide a summary of the practice outlined in the book here, though it is possible you'll need to reserve judgment from your own personal lens in order to understand the concept and obtain its value. I realize I may lose some of you here, especially those of you who are more analytically minded and fact-oriented, but I urge you to hear me out as I walk through this process. This practice requires no prior knowledge of Buddhist teachings, only an open mind. Alione points out that we carry this inherent tendency to fight against or amongst ourselves. Addiction, inner judgment or shame, anger, among many other inconsistencies of motivation. She terms these aspects of self that we fight against demons, for the sake of the book and the practice of Chut. These aspects can go by any name you wish in place of this. Exiled parts, the shadow, inner conflicts, or any other name you wish to bestow upon these parts. She then instructs us to go about the process of feeding our demons, or nurturing these parts of self, as opposed to our continued fighting against ourselves. She states that reclaiming and nurturing these parts of self with whatever their underlying true need is will allow us to heal and lessen the negative impact that these parts exercise on our daily lives. In order to do this, she lays out a 5-step emotive process that is actionable and easy to follow. In the book, she recommends setting up 2 chairs sitting opposite each other and sitting in one of them. While it is believed that having the chairs present as props enhances the immersion and effectiveness of the process, it's not absolutely necessary and can be done as a single continuous process without props. Now, step 1 is going to be to find the demon. Find an issue that disturbs you or interrupts your peace. Pick one aspect that you wish to focus on, big or small. Focus on and enhance its feeling in your body, as well as the effects it has. Feel whatever feelings come up, then actively intensify them. Focus fully and immerse yourself in that pain or discomfort, amplifying its effect. Note the locations in your body you feel it present the strongest. Note the color associated with it. Find its presence as descriptively and as fully as you can. For example, if I were to be looking to work with my demon of nicotine addiction, I would sit in the chair and bring up those feelings and cravings with my eyes closed. For me, this demon represents as an irritation felt through my arms, neck, and head. As I intensify it, I feel a sense of unease and I feel fidgety. I enhance it further, and the tightness in my shoulders grows stronger. It is a yellowish-orange energy. The second step in this process is going to be personifying the demon and asking it what it needs. Now that I've found the location and qualities associated with this demon, it's time to take that intensified aspect and personify it, allowing it to gain form in the chair sitting opposite you. Note the shape it takes as it manifests in your mind's eye. What are its qualities? What emotions is it exhibiting? Does it come in the form of a person, a monster? Now that you have this dramatic representation present with you, ask the demon 3 questions. What do you want? What do you need? And finally, how will you feel when you get what you need? When I personify my nicotine addiction demon, it manifests in my mind's eye across from me in the chair as a floating black blob with many mouths. It has a mocking energy to it, and it spins and twists slowly but unpredictably. I ask the 3 questions aloud. What do you want? What do you need? And how will you feel when you get what you need? It is extremely important we do not accuse, judge, or look upon these parts of self with disdain. This will be the default tendency when interacting with these demons, as it is what we have been doing for long enough time for them to begin causing problems within us and in our lives. Reserve your judgment and look upon your demon with curiosity and goodwill. Next is step 3, to become the demon. Now, you get up and you physically sit in the chair you projected your demon into. Become it and feel it fully. Sense what it feels, as it is a part of you. Feel what it's like to embody this aspect of yourself. Next, answer the questions you most recently asked yourself. For me, when I got up and sat in the chair of my nicotine demon, I felt a sense of annoyance with the person sitting across from me, meant to be in my chair. The first answer came in quite the predictable fashion, as I personified it and declared, I want nicotine. I waited and contemplated the next question, what do you need? And finally arrived at, I want to feel welcomed and important. For the final question, how will you feel when you get what you need? I received the answer that I will feel at ease when I get what I need. Now is step 4, to feed the demon and meet the ally. The 4th step is to attempt to satisfy this demon to the best of our ability with what it truly needs, as Alione believes that these needs lie at the core of our self-destructive behaviors. In this process, we sit back in our original chair and imagine dissolving our bodies into the substance or quality that the demon truly needs in order to be satisfied. Rather than practicing further deference towards our demon, we give of ourselves and imagine our body as a limitless pool of this resource that the demon needs. We do this for however long we need to as the demon gets its fill. Over time, the demon will either dissolve for the time being, or change its form and qualities, becoming something we can see as an ally. For me, my demon needed relaxation, and it stated it would be at ease when it got what it needed. So I sat opposite my demon and entered a relaxed state. I imagined dissolving my body into relaxation and gladly fed it its fill of this relaxation. I imagined it consuming this substance for some time and felt a sense of relief as I did so. I watched it for a time and it eventually dissolved into a pink gnome with a bright spirit. This Alione refers to as the ally. We can ask our ally how it is meant to assist us and then dissolve it and reabsorb the ally into ourselves. Finally, we rest in the awareness of the process. The final step, after reabsorbing the ally, is to sit in the state of relaxed awareness that tends to happen after going through the process in earnest. With the demon sated, we can reflect on the experience or simply sit in the calm. This process, Alione emphasizes, is extremely important and should not be rushed. I can confirm that when walking myself through this process, I did feel a sense of peacefulness at the end, and the resolution of the inner turmoil, at least for the time being, was a pleasurable experience. Now, I realize I may have lost some of you with all the dramatic representation and talk of imagining parts of self. What's functionally going on here, you may be asking? Well, with this practice, we were able to create a greater awareness of our inner conflict by asking questions we may have never considered to ask in reference to it, actually practice the self-acceptance required to look at these parts without contempt, generating dialogue necessary for moving beyond our problems, and in so doing, free ourselves from the struggling present within ourselves and enter a state of relaxed awareness. Now, how does this change our lens? The greater internal awareness and the reduction in internal struggle offered by Chut allows us to look at our problems with greater rationality and calm, so that we can decide what our best course of action is going forward. We have observed our lens, and the source of some of its distortions, and by observing it, we bring it into our power. I know it can feel overwhelming to try to change ourselves and our thought patterns for the better, but I hope this video made it just a bit easier for you. Thank you everyone for watching, and stay curious.